Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late today, but like I can't get this light to turn on. So I don't know what the deal is there. Also, kind of seems like the camera is a little bit off this morning too. But that's okay. Let's go to the charts. My charts are all screwed up. Nothing is going correctly this morning. Everything is all jacked up. Okay, hold on. We're gonna hold off on doing that until I can reload all historical data and fix these charts. Okay, and that one's okay. Oh, it also sounds like I have the speakers on. Let's fix that. Okay. I think what happened was I also had some internet problems. Oh, okay, so here's the news. That was retail sales. We got spot 2 versus an expected spot 5. Treasuries rallying off that news. Not too extreme, but a decent amount of volume. It is now pushing us below 3.75. Really? Well, for some reason, when I try and reload historical data on this chart, it doesn't fix it. And my freaking key light's still not showing up. There we go. Is trading futures my full-time job? No, and I don't think it ever will be. I mean, of course, it's possible for you to make a lot of money from futures, but I think that depending on this for your entire living sounds like a hell. But we may get to the point someday where the market is our full-time job, but not scalping. I would like to get to a spot where, like, maybe we have an investment advising or hedge fund sort of business, and we're still making YouTube content, and we're doing good with the scalping, sizing up with the scalping. But I tell you what, I make I make a really good living from my day job. So I do enjoy doing my day job, and I don't really see much of a reason to stop doing that. Is there any futures trading platform that I don't know. I'm a site reliability engineer. It's my day job. Basically, it's I do software stuff. Okay, now this is a little wild. Okay, so just want to know, U.S. retail sales month over month, spot 2 versus an expected spot 5, and core retail sales month over month, spot 2 versus an expected spot 4. And the markets kind of knee-jerked higher, or rather the treasury market did a knee-jerk higher. And then the dollar flipped around. And we are now below where we were from the news. So this is a very, very bizarre setup. I'm kind of tempted to go long here, but I think that I am, I had a lot of trouble getting ready today and everything. I think there's probably going to be plenty of back and forth. I am going to let them just battle it out here for a little bit and watch on the sideline. The golden handcuffs? I guess. I mean, the thing that I'm saying is, like, I probably have the ability to go it on my own through a number of different means. I would probably have to make some sacrifices, but I just don't really see the point, because I enjoy the day job that I have, and I don't really feel that it restricts me. Right? The thing that restricts me, like, you gotta realize, sorry, I'm not trying to, like, I hate this kind of a conversation. I'm not trying to, like, brag or anything like that, but I'm just saying, site reliability engineering is kind of on the upper end of the engineering pay scale, so I have quite a bit of freedom now. It took a bit to catch up with inflation and, a couple of other things that were going on with having kids and stuff like that. But now I have lots of freedom. So, if there's things that I want to do, hold on a second. I still have one gnat in this room. Anyways, I can do the things that I want to do, right? My issue is not that I don't have I maybe time is maybe an issue. Time is maybe an issue, but I can really do any of the things that I want to do. It's a matter of deciding to do them and being successful with them. You know what I mean? Because I would prefer to bootstrap things, But yeah. So you don't know any trading platform that does not require a social security number? I am not familiar, but surely there are some that cater to other. I mean, that you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. Right. I mean, there's plenty of platforms where you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. So here's the deal. This is where it gets weird. Okay. Maybe I should pull my book out here. Okay. Let me find it here in my Series 3 book. Okay. Where is it? Is it 21? No, that's not it. Somewhere in here. Type of accounts, investment company accounts. Ring. No, it's got to be earlier than that. I think it would be in chapter 1. Your issue is your commute. Oh man, like staying home gives me so much more time. But I spend most of it working out, you know. So, oh my gosh. I can't find the exact passage in my series 3 study materials that I'm looking for. But basically it's this. Futures commodity trading, the FCMs, futures clearing merchants have a responsibility to ensure that the people that they're taking on as customers have the ability to take on the risk and things like that. So they have to ask all of this stuff, like your social security number and all of those sorts of things. But they do not have the obligation to verify any of the information. Does that make sense? So, I'm pretty sure, number one, if you're outside of the US or you don't have a social security number, then you would want to get a broker that kind of is more focused on Europe, which I think would be Dorman Trading. I think is kind of more Euro-centric. Okay. But I think you understand the kind of the underlying I think you can read between the lines about what I just said there. They're required to ask for all of this information from the regulations and everything, but they're not necessarily required to verify any of it. So we got this watch, right? And at first I had it at one link, and it was a little too loose, so I tightened it up, and it seemed like it was okay. And now, after this weekend, it's no matter what, it's not okay. It's like my wrist got bigger. So I think I'm going to have to go and change it again. maybe all of that moving strengthened my hands and made my wrist a little bit bigger. I don't know. How long have you been trading futures for? Well, I started trading essentially the later end of 2016. So 8 years now. Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time. Oh man, I got a bunch of stuff going through my head. So I want to eat some food here. But anyways, to the conversation I was having with Brad, a lot of it is like deciding to do something. You know what I mean? And sometimes, yeah, I think it's kind of an ADHD thing. Sometimes you'll get, like frozen. So like, I think I want to start an investment advising business. I think that, it would be like eventually moving towards doing funds and like even private equity kind of stuff. But I guess the first step is to come up with a name and register a business. And There's nothing really stopping me from doing that other than coming up with a name and doing it, but I haven't done it. You know what I mean? That's the sort of things that are stopping me. And it sounds so stupid because all you got to do is just pick a name and do it. But like, it's like you can't. This is, or I can't. It's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I don't want to choose a terrible name, and so it kind of almost becomes like an excuse not to do the thing. You know? It's but we'll eventually do it. I'll eventually get over it. My plan is to live really frugally for a year or two and save up a huge chunk of change to start a fund with. Like if I could put together, and this is a little crazy, but I think that I could potentially put together 100,000. So if I could put together 100,000 and then, solicit some people that might be able to contribute to a fund, and we could start something. And I kind of want to start multiple funds, actually. But I don't know. So, like, one of the things is I was listening to, like, the All In podcast the other day, and they were talking about private equity. And he was talking about, we were writing, like, these several $100 million checks and stuff like that. But then there's these other guys, like the people that did WeWork and all of that other stuff that was like a big disaster. I forget what that fund was called. That was like they were managing billions of dollars, and it was so much that even like 100 million wasn't really like worth it to them, and they had a hard time finding investments that were big enough for them. Which is quite a wild thing, but so yeah. I don't think I want to be managing several $100 million. I mean, I'm not there yet, but I do think I'm there to be able to start something. And I guess a lot of it would be you get bigger and you hire people, right? But I have an idea. I think I have an idea that's unique. So you haven't reached six figures, not from trading, no. You realize I trade quite conservatively, right? So especially during the summer, by the way, but so this is again where like I kind of handicap myself, right? So I try and bootstrap everything. So like I said, I'm going to open up a tiny account and then I'm just going to trade that tiny account and build it up. Okay. Well, when you take out like the data fees and you're trading one micro contract, it's kind of hard to build the account size, right? So maybe I need to put more in and size up like that, right? But I want to just, size it up. But the thing for me is that I'm not, the money doesn't necessarily matter to me, I'm more interested in how good are we at trading, trading a one lot is the hardest thing to do, I think. When you start getting multiple contracts and all of these other things, or you're able to hold it for longer and to swing them, right? You're able to take advantage of things like taking on risk, being in the market for a long time. And those are things that kind of help you and can overcome your other deficiencies, right? But I think that if you really want to become the best trader, it's all in, all out, one lot. You're going to get really good, right? And I have gotten pretty good. I don't know that, but then there's this whole thing that's like, well, you're on a YouTube channel and people are watching and they want you to do that. And it's, well, that's probably not to their benefit, right? Because what I could do is I could be just starting to swing large amounts here and moving, having swings of hundreds of thousands of dollars for everybody's entertainment. But I don't think that that's what would be the most valuable to people. I think it's more valuable to keep it small so that the amount of money is not distracting everybody, and that the people that are here in chat and are working with us are the people that are interested purely in the trading, right? And get the people that don't really care about trading and are just chasing after dollars can go somewhere else. What is your opinion of scalping futures? Well, okay, so if you want to if you want to play, that's the word I'm looking for. If you want to play on the intraday time frame, I really think that futures is the way to go. And I think that there are a number of, I don't really necessarily want to call it scalping per se, but short term informational based strategies. There's a lot of edge that you can build there. Now, you're not gonna like double your money every year. I think that if you're doubling your money every year, you're probably taking on too much risk. But you can, with the leverage, get a decent return in the 10 to 20% range year after year. But ultimately, if your goal is like capital appreciation, then day trading is not the correct thing, right? So day trading is, well, it's kind of a moving target because the thing is, so much edge has been removed from the market, right? It used to be that you could really be a market maker, and there's a lot of people that made a lot of money from that. It's kind of a different game now, right? So I think that the people that are trading futures, it's number one primarily because you enjoy it and you enjoy the markets, and then number two because you want to be informed, because nothing else puts you there at the forefront, keeps you knowledgeable about what's going on. And so what I would recommend, and I think that the ideal candidate for short-term futures trading is somebody that's upper middle class, has some extra time on their hands, and wants to be able to adjust to the markets better. Because you may or may not make, tons and tons of money from scalping the futures, but what you will do is you'll know what interest rates are doing. You'll know the trajectory of the economy and what the big kind of questions are. You'll know which sectors are kind of on the horizon as up and coming and so forth. And so you're going to be better positioned to adjust the bigger things in your life, like what kind of job you have and what when you buy a house, all of these kinds of larger financial decisions, you'll make better decisions, right? So the reason that I am in the position that I am, where I have a great degree of financial freedom, is because I knew all of these things. I knew that the housing market was going to get crazy. I knew this like back in 2010, 2012. That's why I rushed into a house as quickly as I could and lived house poor for a long, long time, knowing that eventually the inflation would catch up and that it would be okay, and that my earnings would continue to increase and that I would be okay, and that if I waited on the buying the house, I might not be able to, because then I would have to fight with all of the other millennials. I knew that I needed to get in a house before the majority of millennials got into their 30s and were fighting over the housing market, right? That was something that I only knew because of how involved in the markets I was, right? And so I was able to make a financial decision different from the majority of my peers that gave me a big leg up, right? And so the amount of money that I save on my house is, many times over more than what most people will make from the futures trading, right? I also knew kind of where the tech market was going and where the jobs market was going, and was able to position myself into jobs that have high earnings, right? That there was a lot of luck involved in that one. But still, probably wouldn't be in the position that I am if not for my involvement in the markets, right? So that's where I say I think the ideal person is somebody that's kind of middle class, upper middle class, has a bit of financial freedom, can put some money into futures trading, doesn't have to worry about it going away, but then they're able to make these other decisions. Then that's able to get them from, I'm doing pretty good to generational wealth sort of thing, right? That's where I think that the greatest power is, right? And then there's this other group, which is like, you have a big wad to trade and you want to trade it. You can make it, right? If you have a big wad. But what happens, and the reason why I'm saying all of this is that what happens is you turn 21 and you have $1,000 and you think that you're going to turn that $1,000 into $1 million. It's unrealistic, right? Good morning, Gary. Another thing that I would say is that there is a lot of opportunity in stocks. And so I think that you come in and you do the futures because that kind of puts you on the front line, but then you can position trade stocks. You don't necessarily have to like pattern day trade stocks, but you can position trade stocks and you probably do pretty okay. Okay, so are we getting some more news here at the top of the hour? What do we got? U.S. Red Book. Well, I'm still quite confused about the way this market played out this morning. 20 is indeed unrealistic. Double your chances by starting with 40. Well, I think that if you're a young kid, that you just play the market like really passively, right? Like you watch the market every day. You don't necessarily have to be actively trading, but you still watch the market as though you were. Can you please explain why futures cannot screw around with your account as compared to Forex? I'm not sure I understand what you mean with that. There are a lot of rules in the US from the CFTC governing how customer accounts are dealt with. We'll put it that way. I think that Forex is much more Wild West. Okay, so like the futures kind of got regulated in this. I think it was the 70s when a lot of these rules came out. I could be wrong about that one. Forex was kind of more something that originated in the 90s and has never reached the level to which Congress has decided to do something about it. And then on top of that, since the 2000s, you're not really it's very difficult to pass major legislation anyways. And so pretty much all of the financial innovations that you've had since then, like Bitcoin, have not really been put under the same financial requirements. This is kind of the annoying thing. You got to realize that our financial regulatory framework is like way, way behind the technology, right? Ever heard stories where the broker removed all the funds from people's accounts just like that? Well, they what? So they didn't lose the money. They took the money out and the customer never got it back. That sounds like a scam to me. Some best trades are when I sit on my hands. Well, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of sitting on my hands today. I'm not. So yeah, I've got a couple of problems to begin with. I bet you that if everything had been going well today, I probably would have tried trading that monster of a move. And I probably would have made a mistake. Because what it's doing today is doesn't really make sense. I don't know what else to say. It doesn't really make sense. Well, but so I can't confirm that sort of a thing happening with Forex. I'm just going to say that futures are much more closely regulated than Forex is. Right? Forex is practically banned in the United States, right? Like, what was it? FXCM, they got kicked out. And so, I mean, I think you can still do it in the US, but it's not very popular now. And I say good because honestly, I just despise the way that Forex works. Yeah, just avoid Forex altogether. I really don't think like okay, so you can come over into the futures and you can play FX futures, right? You being able to find an edge in the FX futures, good luck. It's really hard. You're at such an informational disadvantage is the problem with that one. You know, over here in futures and, you know, especially the treasuries and I would say equity indexes to some extent too, there's all sorts of information out there that in many cases, like the majority of the people in the market know about, but it's like not being factored into price at all. And you can find these key points where all of a sudden those flows have to come through and you'll know it and you can just ride the wave, right? And you can get good trades with those. And yeah, you want to be the sniper. Be the sniper, take really focused trades, right? But Forex, that's much more rare. That's much more rare in the currencies. And most of the time what's happening in the currencies is the move is happening and you have no clue why it's moving. And then you find out later. Because these insiders can trade all of this, you know, government insiders can trade the currencies and stuff. So, yeah. It kind of comes down to this question of, okay, how much does it move when you don't know what's going on, and how much does it move compared to how much it moves when you do know what's going on, right? And there's kind of a ratio which is acceptable. And I think that in both currencies and in Bitcoin, that level is unacceptable. Take delivery on an oil futures contract. Get oil drums delivered to your house. Okay, so you know what's something else that interests me, and this is part of why I want to get into commodities trading pools and stuff like that, is supposedly in Utah, and I guess I should do a little bit of research on where they are at this project, but they're trying to create a quote inland port in Utah, so that you would be able to trade things just like you do in LA or in New York in terms of, like, you know, the ports and everything, but it's here in the middle on dry land in a pretty central hub between, well, the whole Intermountain West. So there's like a lot of political opposition to it and stuff, but they want to make an inland port, and I kind of wonder, oh, okay, so if they do that, will that afford some opportunities to me? I don't know. We'll see. But when they talk about it, it just sounds like it's a lot of money that could come through. Oh, here you go. Utah Inland Port Authority Board approves plan to create industrial park in Spanish Fork. No, that's not it. All of the stuff that I'm getting is actually not inland ports. This is the one that I think I'm looking for. We're just squirrels trying to get our nuts on. I think that's the perfect analogy, right? We live in the financial age of dinosaurs, and we're all just the tiny little mammals trying to pick up the scraps from the dinosaurs. That's what we are. And someday, maybe someday, that meteor comes and then we rule the earth. But that day hasn't come yet. Anyone see? So, wait, has there been something recent on the Ripple case? Wait, is there more news on that I have not seen? Oh. It looks like I am getting a lot of news here. Okay, 17 hours ago, U.S. securities regulator disappointed with Ripple's defeat over Ripple's XRP. Whoa. In a landmark victory for the cryptocurrency industry, a U.S. judge ruled July 13th that Ripple did not break federal security laws by selling XRP on public exchanges in a move that sent the value of the token soaring. Oh, jeez. Was that today? So I would have expected to see a story about that on Zero Hedge, but I hadn't seen anything yet. You know what? I have this food here that I'm supposed to eat. How about I eat a little bit of food while I look for this, okay? Securities and Exchange Commissioner Chair Gary Gensler said Monday that his agency is both pleased and disappointed with a court ruling that Ripple Labs' XRP token was not necessarily a security, but implied that crypto exchanges aren't off the hook for complying with SEC regulations. There's ongoing litigation with a number of these crypto platforms, and these platforms are commingling a number of services that you've seen on the crypto platforms where they could well be trading against their customers, bundling up a bunch of services that we would not allow in any other parts of our capital markets. The interview was his first since a judge ruled last Thursday. Oh, that was last Thursday, man. I'm way behind. That the XRP token issued by Ripple was a security when sold to institutional investors, but not to the general public. That can't be what he actually said, because if it's a security, it's a security. But they could say that it was a security, but that they did not break the rules when they sold it to institutional investors, but they did break the rules when they sold it to the general public. I would say very much so. that in order to, because the rules for like a private offering versus a public offering are different. They did not meet the rules for a public offering. But it also is kind of the way they're wording it. I think I would need to read the decision. It kind of sounds like the decision kind of punted a little bit on whether or not it was a security. Now, what? Yeah. The hedge order that you're talking about in Forex is kind of a scam, I think. I shouldn't call it a scam, but what they're doing is they're attaching themselves to a word to give their little financial innovation credibility when it is not a hedge. Okay, so the stories I'm seeing was Gensler talking the past day. I do remember XRP popping off. Now that said, Bitcoin is below 30K today, so it didn't impact Bitcoin, which is kind of so I continued to see this like really wild thing in the cryptocurrency market, which is that like Michael Saylor is the only person like buying in the market, and otherwise the market is like completely dead. So if we were to have an issue, like I tell you what, man, if there's like another bout of inflation, let's just say that 6 months from now, inflation comes roaring back, which some people do think could happen, Bitcoin would be so screwed because they're so over leveraged at this point. When I heard that last bit of, oh, we bought this much, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Could not believe it. Yeah, now the BlackRock thing, I have issues with the BlackRock thing. Okay. So for starters, I've been seeing a lot of bullshit coming out of Mr. Fink lately. Like straight up, he is like contradicting himself on things that he's said in the past, kind of pushing forward on like ideas and, you know, we should be doing this and we should be doing this that he's not really doing himself. And then there's the whole cryptocurrency thing. And so what I'm saying here is they're talking it up like, oh, we think actually we're on board now. We think cryptocurrency is the future, when the reality is they just want the money from the transactions. That's all they care about, right? So I would be very suspicious of them. 1. 2, I don't think it's going to get approved. In fact, the rumor has been that the SEC is leaning towards not approving it. And I really don't see why they would approve it for BlackRock when they had already, within a few months, you know, shot it down on a number of other fronts. And nothing has really changed in the cryptocurrency industry. So why would they approve it? So I think that everybody's kind of getting overly excited about BlackRock. If it got approved, then for sure buy. If it gets approved the day it gets approved, I should buy it. I should probably put some money in to Coinbase, right? But I don't think it's going to get approved. And bigger picture, again, the thing is that our financial regulation is like way behind the times because we haven't been able to really do a whole lot of, passing laws and regulation since, basically since the Bush years, since like 2006. And so there's a lot of things. I really think that they should change some rules. I disagree with these people that say that like cryptocurrency is special and should be treated differently. What I would like to see is regulation that says that people are required to do the same thing that they are with stocks. Like if you are doing a quote unquote initial coin offering, you should be required to disclose. If an exchange is like listing a coin, they should be required to disclose stuff. Because right now, these exchanges can just play complete BS games with you, right? They can, so for starters, you have to pay like big money to even get listed on an exchange, right? And then it's like you give them a ton of the coin and then they launch it. So like the exchanges make tons of money onboarding coins onto their exchange. So you're thinking, oh yeah, this is great. It's on this exchange. This is going to help the coin and everything. And meanwhile, they're dumping everything that they have into you guys, right? That happens all the time. Exchanges trade against their customers all the time. Why should it be the Wild West? Why is it that we need to protect consumers when it comes to stocks, commodities, options, all the other things, but we should just allow them to do whatever they want in cryptocurrency, right? Because you're talking about something that wants to take over the financial system, right? Who are you really handing it over to? The way that things are right now, I think that every day that cryptocurrency gets more popular is a bad thing for society. And, the thing that concerns me again was that you had the whole Alameda FTX or whatever the name of that exchange was. That whole fiasco. And nothing has changed since then. And I don't think that the biggest scams out there have even been exposed. I still think that Tether is not fully backed. And I still think that Binance, Binance is pulling shenanigans, that a lot of their volume is fake, etc., etc., etc. Right? Why throw the public into that? I remember when the mutual fund industry was against the ETF industry, which, well, yeah. Well, so on the ETF thing, that one's kind of funny, I think, actually, because from like a values and that kind of a logical framework about why should or shouldn't we allow something, I think it's kind of hard to argue against an ETF, right? You want to have, you want to be as hands-off with the markets as you can and only intervene where it's really necessary to protect the public. That's kind of my thinking. So how do you fight against the ETFs, right? But I'm starting to think that the ETFs in the index funds are actually a negative thing for the market overall in the end. Too late to do anything about it, probably, but I'm not so sure. Maybe the hedge mutual funds were right. I'm starting to wonder, maybe the mutual funds were right. Because I keep thinking about this world where it doesn't seem like the funds are getting any weaker. you know? And we're starting to move into this world where the index funds are like practically everything. And there's all sorts of problems that are coming out in the market because of it. Make everything transparent so anyone can audit the broker? Sure. But that's why all of those regulations exist, right? So the reason that all of those regulations exist is so that people cannot just go and issue a security without having to do certain disclosures and give people certain information that is really necessary for them to be able to make decisions deciding whether or not they want to invest in that thing, right? And I don't understand why we feel that it's okay to not do those for cryptocurrencies. I don't think that I should say that Bitcoin is a security, okay? But anything that was pre-mined is a security. I think that you can argue that Bitcoin is no longer a security because we haven't heard anything from its creator, and it's been so long and it's gotten so big, relatively speaking, that I think that Bitcoin itself and Ethereum maybe are kind of like immune from that. Okay. But from there, I think that if you're doing, you're putting a product out, that in order to put it on the exchange, there has to be certain disclosures about the creators. If they pre-mined anything, who is actually going to benefit from this? Right? Is this somebody that does pump and dumps all the time? Well, maybe you don't want to get in on that coin, right? If I make two, okay, but Adam, so here's the real question that you're not asking. Why? What is the purpose of the strategy? Right? So what they're really trying to do is they're trying to say, you don't make any money if it's in here, but then if it breaks out from there, then you make money. Right? And what they're doing is they're tying that into some sort of special product that's difficult to understand to make it sound cool to you, right? But the reality is you can just put stop orders, bracket the market with stop orders. One order cancels the other, and when it breaks out of that area, take the trade, right? Because otherwise, if I come in and if I'm long on one account and I'm short on the other account, from the same price in the same instrument, then like what's the point? It's just the same as if you had no position on, except for that you've paid two brokers now. You've paid commissions twice for having no position, right? Why not just put on a stop loss, right? So what I mean, like a perfect hedge, a quote unquote perfect hedge is kind of pointless. The whole point of a hedge is to limit the things that you are exposed to, but there still needs to be something that you're exposed to. Otherwise, there's no way to make money from it, right? with a perfect hedge, then retail traders, most likely outcome is both trades end up being losers and you close your losing trade. And then your winning trade will be turn around and become a loser and you close that as a loser. Yeah, probably. Yeah. No, you're right, Mr. M. So for those of you that aren't in on the context, because Adam had come in a couple of days ago and asked this question. In Forex, you can do something that is called a perfect hedge, where you're both long and short in the instrument at the same time. And then, presumably, at some point, you can choose to close one side of the hedge and let the other side run, right? And so what we're trying to say is that this is basically a product that the Forex market has created to help them make more money. And it doesn't actually do anything for you. So then we were kind of talking about, okay, like what is the larger strategy here? Well, you want to get into a position if we break out of a certain range or something like that. You're probably better off trying to do that with a stop limit order. That's how I would do it, as a stop limit order, because you don't want to. The worst thing is that you enter into a position with a stop order and you get a tick or two of slippage. So I prefer to do it with a stop limit order, entering a position with a stop limit order, and that way, you know, if they don't fill me, then it's okay. Because then I just don't have any position, right? Oh, geez. So apparently Andrew Tate and Aiden Ross, because Tate is like on house arrest or whatever. Apparently Tate and Aiden Ross are doing the thing again today. Dana White was going to be in on it too, but he couldn't make it. Totally. Yeah, totally. And so the thing is what I'm trying to help Adam understand here is that what's happened is the Forex broker came up with this thing that says, oh, okay, well, we can make more money from commissions if we tell people to do these perfect hedge things. And then they think, oh no, there won't be any, you know, I won't have any risk on. And that's perfect. But then you're just making the bucket shop more money, right? And then they go and they write articles about this strategy and how to execute it and do all of these things and how great of a strategy it is. When really the whole thing is just deploy to get you to do more Forex business, right? Who's Aiden Ross? Oh, that's good. Actually, you know, I didn't even realize. Okay, so Aiden Ross is like a super far right wing streaming personality that was banned from most of the major platforms. Wait, is he right wing? I can't actually recall now. I think he's been kicked off of the major streaming platforms. Oh, there you go. Aiden Ross reveals why he got banned from Twitch. That's right. Ross was banned from Twitch for the 8th time on February 25th, 2023 for, quote, hateful conduct after he showed his kick chat on stream, which was flooded with racist and anti-Semitic messages. Yeah. But the whole thing is that Aiden Ross and Andrew Tate like win at it. And like Tate basically called Aiden a loser and a cuck and stuff like that. So that's why I'm saying, oh no, they're doing at it again. Is that what you're going to see? Is all of the best clips from this event that's going to happen in a few hours? They're going to just flood TikTok and everything, and there's probably going to be plenty of drama about it. Yeah. So. Yeah, the trader just turns away paying double the commissions for mathematically not having a position on. Exactly. So Adam hasn't said anything, so I hope that I didn't hurt his feelings, but... Certainly, there's probably more about what they're doing on the Forex side and everything that, you know, we could discuss and everything. I'm just too lazy to reply. Okay. Cool. But what I'm trying to say is I would just move on. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Peyton Ross Battle of the Wing. Yeah, that's exactly it. Sounds like me when I bashed TA on trading groups and they just banned me and DM me mean things about my girl. Oh man. Well, it's this whole thing is really interesting. So like I said, the other day, like I'm really concerned about a lot of things that I see in the conservative movement. Because I'm generally speaking, I'm a conservative, but so, you know, something that's been happening the other day is Mr. Tucker Carlson. He's kind of been out and talking a bit now, right? Tucker's whole thing is like, well, the thing that Donald Trump did was he came in and he gave the GOP the opportunity to become the Big Ten. That all of these people were basically being abandoned by the Democrat Party, who has gone full globalist, so they had nowhere to turn but to the GOP. And when those people came to the GOP, the GOP being the country club GOP portion of the club that's in charge, recoiled that. And it's like, no, we don't want these people, go away, right? And then Donald Trump came in like a wrecking ball and forced it, and forced the GOP to kind of become that everybody party. And it's still kind of battling out. Okay. And he says, well, they recoiled at it like, oh, we don't want these poor people, etc., etc. But that's not it. I don't think that that's an accurate representation of why those people were concerned. The reason that those people are concerned is because while there are some really big agreements on some key things, and you know, like everything from philosophical, you know, what matters, and like we're still classical liberals, we still believe in rights and things like that. But Republican Party also believes that we should take care of America first, that we should protect American interests over global corporate interests, for instance, right? So, and that was something where the Republicans and, you know, they could kind of agree in there, right? Okay, but this new cohort of people also have some ideas implanted in their head that have nothing really to do with the values, that are just straight up incorrect, particularly when it comes to finance, right? For instance, this crowd generally tends to believe that the Federal Reserve should just be abolished. Well, that's, if you really understand today's financial system, it's a ridiculous proposition. And spending any kind of time, you know, seriously pursuing that idea is kind of to your party's detriment, right? The other place where this is starting to be a problem is on foreign policy, because this new wing wants to be isolationist, and the whole post World War II era has been based on the United States position of prominence and prestige in the world has been the primary source of its economic power. And if we become isolationist, then we lose that. And it would probably not turn out well for the United States in the long run. And so this is the other battle that we're having, right? Okay. So while there's that kind of thing going on between the real like party wonks, the people that are like really seriously involved in this and are writing policy proposals and maybe would potentially write legislation and stuff, like that's a battle between those guys and kind of more the populists and the people on social media and stuff like that, right? Then there's this other thing that's going on, which is that people and on the conservative side, particularly everyday people, are kind of looking for leadership of some sort, right? And everywhere that you turn, when you try and come up into a leader, and this is really on both the left and the right, but when you're looking for people to kind of look up to, it's like disaster on every turn. And so somebody will come to prominence, and then it's not really the kind of a person that you really want to be prominent, like Andrew Tate. So it absolutely drives me crazy when people are saying like, oh, Andrew Tate is this new right-wing leader person. Because there's really nothing about Andrew Tate from a political perspective, from like a policy perspective. Like, he doesn't talk about policy, right? He's just he's just kind of like a motivational speaker for the most part, because he's a motivational speaker that plays more to right-wing themes rather than like a right-wing political figure, right? But like, he's the person that gets shoved to the front, and then everybody's like, you see, this is what the right is doing, guys. You know, it drives me crazy, because I really don't think that you want to, you know, I think that Andrew Tate is a good indication of some of the, you know, the symptoms of the problems. I think he speaks to some of the problems, right? But then his answer is hedonism. Hedonism. And honestly, like while he does kind of speak to more of a conservative mindset to some extent, you know, there's a lot of things that he believes that I think are just like directly contradict everything that I think that conservatives are really trying to talk about and push. We're having another move in the dollar here, by the way. Dollar's kind of moving down and treasuries are coming back up. You know, like for instance, Andrew Tate is basically Muslim, as far as I understand it right now. He's Muslim, and he believes that a man can have more than one wife. And that's not really what conservatives are trying to say socially. You know, my opinion is that you should get married and have kids, and the faster you can get into that, generally speaking, the better. And that having a successful and stable and secure relationship with a family and children is the most rewarding thing, and is what is going to make you most happy. And if and to the extent that cultural changes over the past 50 years have harmed the family, it is the source of a large portion of our social problems. Because all of the problems that people talk about, like you got online and everybody's talking about, wow, most guys can't even get a girl to give them the time of day at all, because the women all just go for the same guy. And then the girls complain, oh, well, the guys aren't very good. The options that we have for guys aren't very good. And I'm sitting here like, well, I don't have that problem, because people in my area want to get married and have children. And that kind of resolves the problem, because you can only marry one person. No problem. You gotta be successful with the relationship, but that's kind of more of a personal problem. You know? I don't experience that issue in my life right now. So that's kind of like the conservative position socially. That's not what Andrew Tate believes. right? So this is a very, very bizarre thing going on right now. And why is it relevant? Well, because Andrew Tate is on house arrest and can therefore produce new content. And so you're going to see it. You're going to see new Andrew Tate content. What irks you most about Andrew? Oh, well, okay. What irks me most about Andrew is that when he talks about how he made his fortune, it pretty much sounds like he is engaging in human trafficking. He targets girls that he thinks will be good streamers, and then he kind of coerces them into being cam girls. People out there invest more in online influence than they do in their retirements, right? Well, but you know what? I'm totally guilty of that, right? Man, listen, there are a few people that have been more chronically online than me, and I've kind of, to one degree or another, been trying to build up some sort of a following or a community on the internet since Facebook. Really, I'm totally guilty of that. But you know what I discovered? I discovered that it's pretty much just another big scam. that it's all there to encourage you to make content for them so that they can make money from people being on the platforms. And generally speaking, you don't get jack squat. And if too many people start to actually be successful with it, then they shift the platform and change it. Right? They don't actually, as TikTok especially, does not actually want to have powerful creators on their platform. They don't ever want to be in a situation where there's a creator that could say, oh, well, I'm going to move to a different platform. And then they're like, oh, no, that's like going to really destroy our audience. And maybe we should do a deal with them or something like that. Right. Because many platforms have been in that kind of situation. Right. Like Twitch lost big streamers, and that was like a big deal and stuff. And then when those streamers go to other platforms, it's a pretty big chunk of traffic that goes and stuff like that. Right? So I want to be in that position. So YouTube is really the only platform that really cares about its creators. And YouTube doesn't care about its creators as much as it does the engaging content. So YouTube does not optimize itself towards the content that would be best for you. They just optimize towards what people click on and watch. Right? So the whole thing is organized around perverse incentives that aren't actually intended to benefit you. And so what we're seeing now is all the kids, they all want to be influencers. They all want to be a YouTuber or an influencer or something like that because they're seeing these people at the top. And you say that, yeah, everyone with massive followings are secretly miserable. I don't know if it's everybody, but there are some real strains and challenges you have to deal with that people were never meant to deal with that are very stressful. Yes. It's not as great of a gig as people say. I think that if you can be successful and you know, get quote unquote rich without having to have a following, do it. You'll probably be happier doing that. You had the choice. Okay, I can get rich from having a job. Like let's say that you're 18 and you're deciding what to go into, and your choices are anesthesiologist or YouTuber. Be the anesthesiologist, guys. Those guys make so much effing bank. Those guys make so much money. Do the anesthesia because the challenges associated with being a con aren't worth it. Aren't worth it. And that's why I've come back to the point that was like, oh, you know what? I don't think that I actually want to be a big top guy. I don't think that I want to be like the social media equivalent of Jim Cramer. I don't. I think that being Jim Cramer would probably suck. I like having this small niche community. I very much prefer that. And if the YouTube channel ever does break out, because I think it's still probably a likely situation that future videos blow up and do really well, and that the channel continues to grow, because the channel grows way faster than, like we're just at 10,000 and we're already like to almost 12,000 now, right? It grows way faster than I anticipate. If it grows too fast, would just kind of change things so that we can continue to still have the niche community. Oh, you're talking about the Miranda Sings thing. Oh my gosh. That was crazy. Like when I started reading about that, because my kids liked her. And when I started reading about what had been going on, I was like, why did we not know about this sooner? If I had known that that's what, because the whole thing that bothered me about that girl from the beginning was that she became popular on YouTube with kids, and then she went and she made a Netflix series that my kids wanted to watch that was very clearly not targeted towards kids. And frankly, was not really focused at all. Like, as the show went along, it just got more and more bizarre. And like, what was your, there was no like strategy to it. There was no like, okay, this is our audience. This is what, they like to see, etc. It was nothing like that. It was just like one person's impulse on what they thought might be funny that wasn't really actually funny. And I kind of questioned, like, okay, maybe this person is maybe a little bit, maybe their persona is actually just an exaggeration of themselves, rather than it's a caricature or an exaggeration of themselves, rather than, making fun of somebody, or something like that. And the further along it goes, the more I'm like, oh yeah, that is what's happening, because she was 100% doing things that were questionable. Like, I don't think that she was intentionally trying to, quote, groom minors, but, like, she did stupid stuff that she shouldn't have been doing. and I was just so shocked that I hadn't heard, that nobody had sounded the alarm that this was kind of going on, right? That it took a kid, several years after the fact, starting a big thing on TikTok for people to finally go, oh, okay, yeah, she is doing dumb things. Okay, if you were being honest with yourself, how much of that 11K is actually real? And I don't mean that as a personal thing. I've always found social media numbers across platforms to be fishy. Okay, so here's the thing. Number one, if it was not real, I don't think that there would be any way for me to tell. Okay. When I look at the metrics, like what is the type of person that subscribes and watches and things like that, those things all match up with what they should be. They're guys in their 35 to 50-year-old guys, right? So if it was fake, there wouldn't have any way for me to tell, but I don't see anything in those metrics that suggest that there'd be anything fake about it. So I would say that I do believe that those subscriber numbers are genuine. But the big but is the subscriber numbers don't actually matter, because it doesn't factor that into the YouTube algorithm very much, if at all, anymore. That's why I think you might see like a lot of the numbers seem a little bit suspicious, is because the algorithms have changed towards the reach being very specific to that one individual post. Which good news means that if you don't have any kind of a following and you create a good piece of content, your content can still get a lot of eyes on it, right? But the bad news is that you build a following, it doesn't matter. And like I said, this is part of what I view as the scam in social media, is that they don't want you to have a powerful following, right? They don't want you to have that influence. They want it to be that if all of the sudden they decided to remove you from the platform, that nobody would notice. Because it's not unusual for them to not get every video that you send, right? You know what I mean? When Steve Crowder went to Rumble, he signed an exclusivity deal with them. Every stream went at 1 million views despite less than 100K watching live, which is still impressive, but it doesn't make... Okay, so I think that those numbers are kind of a little bit padded. Because what happens is, like, anytime somebody refreshes the screen, or they come in and they leave, or their connection is temporary. So there could be situations where you are viewing the stream, and it could be counted as more than one view, even though you never realize, or you never like left and came back or anything like that. It was something going on under the scenes that you didn't even notice, but the system has no way to differentiate them, and so it counts as a new viewer, right? So when I look at my streams, and it says most of the time I get let's see here. You know, so like right now I have 16 viewers and 69 views. I would think that maybe about 10 to 20% of that 69 was actually you guys like leaving and coming back and stuff. So you're right. Steven Crowder probably did not have 1 million unique people viewing him, right? And I can't see that on the stream numbers, but I believe that if I... Well, let's go look. Yeah, did I switch from CQG to Rhythmic? Yeah, I've been on Rhythmic for over a year now. When I switched over to Edge Clear, I went with Rhythmic. Padded numbers for influencers makes them seem more influential than they are. Platform and control the padding makes the platform look more active. Well, I do think though, like here's the other thing is, let's say that you're looking for a video, right? Like let's say that I come to YouTube and I'm like, I want to know how to finish cherry wood. Right, so I type finish cherry wood. Okay, now I get all of these videos. Okay, darken cherry wood the right way. And here's what people do. I hold control and I click. Okay, so it opens another tab. Tips with Tom McLaughlin. How I finish wood. Bourbon month. You know, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to keep going down, right? Okay. And then I'm going to come into one of these individual ones. Okay, skip ads. Here it comes. Jury method tips with Tom McLaughlin. Well, okay, look, this is an hour and 19 minutes. I don't have an hour and 19 minutes to sit and watch. This was a live stream. It was actually streamed 3 years ago. So I don't actually want to watch this one. But look, I watched 5 seconds of it. Guess what? YouTube counts that, right? And, so YouTube does, has stuff about this in their analytics so that you can come in and you can see in the content, like average view duration. So you can see like how much of it they're actually watching. And they can even go down into, oh, they've kind of changed things. Usually there's a section that will say, okay, like average view duration. Okay. So this order flow one, people are watching on average, everybody averaged out, it's 40% of the video. So that means there's a lot of people that came in and were like, oh, this isn't what I was looking for. Right. So it gives you all of those metrics and stuff, right? And the thing is the popular video, like the channels that have hundreds of thousands and millions of subscribers, right? Some of their numbers are like insanely high. Okay, so it scales like insane. It scales insane, and some of these influencers really do get lots of views and eyes and stuff like that. How do you like Edgeclair? Yeah, I mean, there's been good. I think the funny thing about a broker is that if you have a good broker, you don't even notice that you have a broker. I haven't had any problems to deal with, and everything's been fine. And their margins are a little bit more than AMP, but hasn't been a big major factor. But those are the thing is like when I was with AMP Futures, I found myself saying like every other day, and with NinjaTrader especially, I was like, every other day, oh, I don't like my broker. I want to switch over to broker, right? And then when I go with AMP Edgeclair, and it never crosses my mind. My broker is never something on my mind because it just works. Yeah, AMP has been increasing margins a lot lately. Over the past year. It used to be that didn't happen hardly ever, and now it happens like every non-farms. I think that there was a point during 2021 where they had a little scare and everything worked out, and ever since then they've said, okay, we're gonna throttle our retail traders during these events. Now, I said we're almost at 12,000, but we're at 11,189. But it's like every week. So in 28 days, last 28 days, 354 subscribers. And that's only 44 more than usual. It is like the subscribers is just, it's crazy. I really need to be putting out more content. Like the thing is, if I really truly put out a good video every week, my YouTube channel probably would be like big time YouTube channel by now. But I have a hard time making content sometimes. Hey, Francesco. Just like I didn't put out a video this Monday, even though I said I would. But I don't think I think I run out of excuses now. So. Oh, did I tell you, by the way, I was... This is so funny. Remember yesterday I was complaining about how my new case was louder? Well, what actually was happening was that I had one of the fans plugged into a channel that was meant for your pump rather than a fan. So the reason it was making so much noise was because the fan was being overdriven with too much power, more than the fan is rated for. So when I just switched it over to a regular fan port on the motherboard, it's fine and that's completely silent and I can't hear it. And I kind of had to finagle around a little bit with ports and stuff in the back, but I got everything in there. It's pretty solid. So I thought that I was going to have to go buy a fan controller, and I was able to sort it out. Live action, that sounds like kind of more just the same stuff, just aggregated out differently. But I don't know if I would really find it useful to show the block trades separate from the others in the bid-ask columns. Unless you're talking about the platforms where they're using the MBO data to show that. That's kind of interesting. So, sorry, who is it that usually tells us about that stuff? I think Hulud might have it, but I think and Brad, I think maybe. Was it Brad? I can't remember. But every once in a while we'll have some guys tell us about them. But it's kind of like, so you'll see them where you would expect them to. Yeah. Oh, it's Octavius. Octavius is, yeah, that's right. It can be interesting to know how big the order was. But I can't really think of a situation where it was like really obvious to me from that information that I should be taking a trade, and I took a trade that I wouldn't have with that. So I don't know. It's interesting how ES is climbing here. Yeah, well, the ES is climbing and the treasuries haven't really done anything today. I mean, I guess what we got overall was a big jump on the news and a big reversal, but still overall higher on the day in treasuries. And we continue. I mean, I'm kind of having deja vu with this data, right? Because what are we seeing? Like all of the individual pieces of data, especially the forward-looking pieces of data, suggest that things aren't going very well, that the economy is heading towards a recession. But then when you look at like the headline data and well, not the headline data, but kind of like the not as leading pieces, but like a few months later, it doesn't carry through into the other numbers. And then everybody's like, oh, yay, all the things are hunky-dory, and they move up. Right? I'm having deja vu. Everything looks like we're heading into a recession. Bank earnings. Oh, yeah. So we had earlier come over to Zero Hedge to see if they had some stuff on the bank earnings, but Trump expects arrest and indictment over January 6th. Maybe we come back to that in a bit. Bank of America jumps as strong trading revenues mask weakness in interest income and rising expenses. Oh, is Goldman not till tomorrow? I thought Goldman would be today. Morgan Stanley slides as sales and trading disappoint. Credit loss provisions soared. Goldman must be at the end. Well, it doesn't sound like they all beat. They didn't all beat per se. Like let's say not everything is hunky dory in the finance market, but or in the banking sector, rather. Goldman Sachs is up today. Actually is doing pretty darn good. That's a really strong looking trend today. So the Goldman Sachs must be moving up with the larger banking sector. XLF. The financial, yeah, because financials are doing pretty well overall today. And if we were to go back to zero hedge, they're talking about the Morgan Stanley one. But if I come into Morgan Stanley and bring it over here real quick, they did decline overnight when the earnings were released, but have since moved higher and quite a bit so. So it kind of seems more like a larger banking sector sort of a thing than anything. American Dream died with Gen Xers as a retirement nightmare unfolds. Most Gen Xers don't have a pension plan. Yeah. Dude, it's gonna get interesting in the future because it really seems to me like a scary number of people do not contribute to their 401k, will not have enough money to retire. When my generation starts retiring, it will be a big problem because, like, demand will like fall off a cliff. So you'll have no demand. You have a lower population trying to support this larger group of people that didn't save. There's gonna be problems, right? Former President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he expects to be arrested and indicted by special counsel Jack Smith in connection with the January 6th grand jury investigation. Deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter, again it was Sunday night, stating that I am the target of a January 6th grand jury investigation, giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment. President Biden's DOJ have cast a wide net in their investigation into President Biden's chief rival in the 2024 election. Trump is expected to travel to Iowa on Tuesday, where he will tape a town hall with Fox News host Sean Hannity. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, that is very different. So I was going to ask you guys, what do you think the chances are that the indictments and everything else are as such that it does ultimately force Donald Trump from the ring, right? Like you know what I think would be the best case scenario for Republicans? Like, this is super, super cynical of me, but here's what I think the best case scenario for Republicans is. Donald Trump gets indicted and it becomes another indictment. So that would be like what, number 3 or something like that. And the investigations and everything else coming out about that are such a problem that Donald Trump is forced to excuse me. Let me try that again. I think the best case scenario for Republicans is that all of the drama around investigations and so forth is such that Donald Trump is forced to withdraw from the Republican primary, right? That would be the best case scenario for Republicans, because then, number one, Donald Trump wouldn't be the nominee, okay? Because I think that Donald Trump would be a drag on the ticket at this point, right? But you're still able to play him as the martyr, right? That this is a corrupt establishment prosecuting their enemies, so on and so forth. All of the Republican candidates would pledge to pardon Donald Trump, right? And I think that you would have a very good chance of the Republican candidate winning at that point. That would, I think, would be the best case scenario for the Republicans, right? The worst case scenario for Republicans is that all of these indictments come out and Donald Trump stays in. Because then, if he wins, the whole election cycle will be about these court cases, which would not, would be too divisive again. I don't think he's a quitter. All right, because the other thing was one of the hopes was that maybe Donald Trump can't even win the Republican primary, right? But the issue that I see here is that, number one, so far the candidates have not proven themselves to be very strong. Okay, maybe DeSantis still surprises us. There's plenty of opportunity for it to happen, so I don't want to write it off. But so far it hasn't looked so good, right? And then on top of that, anytime that there are these indictments, it helps Donald Trump, right? It's really like everything is being engineered to turn it into the next election to be another referendum on Donald Trump, which I just absolutely hate that it's coming down to that. You're calling DeSantis Hillary's pick? I tell you what, the biggest surprise for me out of this whole cycle has been DeSantis coming out as the ultra conservative and Donald Trump attacking him from the left. That's been the biggest surprise to me of this cycle so far. Tim's best bet is Biden, and who looks who's on the office. But have you heard all of this stuff about there's these people in the Democrat Party? I'm telling you, it's a really weird. Okay, there are these people in the Democrat Party that are saying, "Look, I know he announced, and I know that everything looks like he's gonna run, like he's running, and all of this, but he's not actually gonna run. That Biden is not actually running to be president." So, the fundraising numbers are actually really interesting. Okay, so my understanding is that Joe Biden raised like 18 million and Donald Trump raised like 25 million and Ron DeSantis raised like 23 million. So Donald Trump is out fundraising everybody. But And for a challenger, that's a lot. That's a lot for a challenger. Like normally at this point in the election cycle from the party that's out of power and there's like an open primary and stuff, that's a lot. But it's not an open primary, right? Because he was president before. Okay. For Joe Biden being an incumbent president, the amount that he is bringing in as an incumbent president is very, very low. And then on top of that, he is hardly spending anything at all. Like, he announced a campaign, he started things, but he has hardly hired any staff. He has hardly spent any money. And so this is kind of fueling these Democrats who are saying that he's not actually going to run, that he's actually going to drop out. And then you've got these guys like the California governor, is basically sitting there waiting in the wings, acting like he's going to run for president. Like he's constantly talking and about things and pushing as though he's going to run for national office. Which honestly, man, what is his name? Governor Newsom. I think that would be such a loser. Everybody hates Governor Newsom. Even the people in California are starting to realize, like, this guy isn't very good at this. We don't want the rest of the country to be like California. I think it would be really, really hard to get those swing states like say Pennsylvania with a candidate Newsom, right? So if that really happened, Biden dropped out and it became Newsom, that would be like such a disaster for the Democrat Party. But that's what the Democrats themselves keep saying is going to happen. I don't believe it, but that's what they keep saying. Okay, now if it was not Newsom and it was somebody else, not Biden, not Newsom, there is the possibility that you could get a strong candidate out of it, right? Although it could be rough, right? I know at that point, then you got Buttigieg, but he's kind of had a lot of scandals and foibles during his, they gave him an easy job, transportation secretary, and it's been nothing but drama. So he's probably not a terribly strong candidate. Betterman. Gosh. Right. I think Elizabeth Warren would probably run again and would maybe be a formidable candidate. Bernie Sanders, maybe it would be Sanders at that point. If you turned your channel into a political channel, I don't know. So I need to be making TikToks about it. Or sorry, YouTube shorts. I have a political channel where I'm supposed to be making YouTube shorts, and I just have been lazy and haven't been making them. It just comes back to this whole thing that, like, I'm really hating short form content, and I don't feel like it's worth the effort. But if I was a political commentator and it was like purely Republican stuff, maybe. I mean, I think the issue that I have is that because the objective here for this stream is to help you guys get a picture of what's going on in the politics so that when it becomes relevant, you have enough context to be able to make the correct decisions in the markets, right? That's why we talk about it. It's just speculators that politics. Anyways, so because that is the point, I inevitably always run into having to say something that's not necessarily popular, right? Like my audience does not want to hear that it's probably not a good idea to stop funding the Ukraine war, for instance, right? That's something that the Republicans, especially the Republicans that are like engaged enough to watch a YouTube channel about it, right? That group does not want to hear that about Ukraine. So, I would be constantly undermining myself in that respect. But when it comes to just bashing on the Democrats and making fun of the politicians in general, yeah, then we've got a good gig, right? Because I take the Tucker Carlson approach to it. I very much identify with Tucker Carlson when he says, like, I hate all politicians. Let's do. I've met many candidates like on the Senate level, like Senate and House Republican level here in Utah. Okay. And all of the people that I've met are really great people. Okay. But politicians are not the same thing as the person. And all politicians I just despise. Because you have to do and say things to be able to maintain support amongst a wide group of people that are never going to completely match up with what you really believe. And so they kind of have to, they're just playing you. Who is less honest? Trump, Clinton, Obama, or Biden? Oh, well, that's... I think you could kind of finagle the definition of honest to to any one of those four. Yeah. So when it comes down to like who has said the greatest number of inaccurate things, it's almost certainly Donald Trump, right? The problem is that I think that a lot of the things that Donald Trump says that are untrue are kind of inconsequential, or he's clearly exaggerating, or he's kind of on the mark and maybe he doesn't completely understand the issue, things like that. Okay. Whereas when Hillary Clinton lies, her direct intention is to deceive the American public on an issue of great significance. Right? So that's where I would say the difference is, right? Obama is very different because Obama was very, very accurate, I would say, most of the time in what he was saying. So like the Biden administration so often says stuff that is just absolute BS. Okay? Like the one that's been driving me most recently is they're like, oh, the economy has been so great under Obama. And then the conservative people come out and they say, yeah, I've suffered that real wages since you've been president have gone down. It's true. Real wages have gone down. So then what happens? He comes out and they say that real wages have gone up. That's an absolute falsehood. It's a lie. When you go on to Twitter, there's the community notes that basically say, no, this is like a pants on fire lie. It is. It's a pants on fire lie. Joe Biden does that all the time. Okay. Obama would never say something so blatantly false like that. Instead, he would always say something that is technically true, but is extremely deceptive, right? Is always extremely, so Obama was being good at being technically correct, but that's why the Obama years, I think people don't realize how much of what America is today really is because of Obama. They think that it's like, oh yeah, Obama was great, and then after Obama, everything has kind of gone downhill, and this is just the, late stage capitalism coming to fruition. And Obama couldn't hold the horde back. No, that's not it at all. Almost everything that we're seeing right now in this economy is a direct result of things that happened during the Obama years. Okay? As an example, housing. Okay? Home builders were savaged during the 2008 crisis, and they basically never recovered. The way that we set up the financial system, even with low interest rates, it was just builders can't build. Builders can't build. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough people working the jobs. It is hard to build houses right now. All right. And Obama never did anything about it either. There was like a problem and they just kind of ignored it. Like, well, we don't want to help the corporate interests, blah, blah, blah. Right. So now you're in this situation where all these millennials are getting to the point where they want to have a house and they can't get them. It's Obama. All of this stuff with school, that's 100% Obama. That was intentional. He intentionally loaded the entire student loan system onto the government. Not with the intention of solving the problem or fixing the costs of education or whatever, but really, I think intentionally to force at some nondescript point in the future a situation where the education system essentially has to be nationalized because of student loan debt. Right? That was Obama, man. If you're a millennial and you're pissed off about the current state of the economy, it's probably because Obama screwed you over, and he was so clever about it that nobody realizes it. So was Obama honest? I don't like the word honest. I use the word integrity, because I think that integrity means more, right? When a person has integrity, that means to me that I can trust them to do the right thing. And I can trust them to not just screw me over, right? And if they do make a decision that is objectively bad for me, it's because it was the right decision for the overall people, right? And I don't think that that's Obama. I think that Obama intentionally undermined certain systems to the detriment of millions of people for political gain. Yep, you ain't got integrity. You know, now does Donald Trump have integrity? Well, I don't think that that's the right question on that side, because I think that President Trump's issue is that he lives so much in the moment and is so impulsive that, you know, he may have felt that it was the correct thing at the time, but I guess I'm saying that I don't 100% trust President Trump's judgment. Not all the time, right? He is a wild cannon that there's advantages to that, right? And there's advantages to having that in the Oval Office, right? But it's became enough of a problem that I really don't think that it's a good idea to nominate him again for president. But it's starting to look more and more every day like that's what's going to happen. So, you think all the Presleys work for Claus? No. I think that the media is more often just you know, clueless rubes that don't really know the consequences of how they're portraying the media. I mean, if Donald Trump somehow ran again, well, I mean, he is running again, but somehow he became the nominee and he beat Joe Biden and was president, that would be interesting too. I don't agree with that. That a Republican can't win in 2024, because you're implying that the election will be quote unquote stolen, right? Or that the election system is set up in such a way that it intrinsically disadvantages Republicans, and that's not necessarily true. I think that in any kind of an election that is close, that Republicans are likely to lose it when it's close. I'm not ignoring questions. You may just have to ask it again. But I don't see any questions from you in your last 4 or 5 messages. Oh, you asked the question, are micros good to trade? I think they are. Yeah. But I think the bigger thing that you should be asking yourself is like, how much risk should I really be taking on? And trading the products, trading a product in size that makes sense for your risk tolerance. Right. So it doesn't make sense to come in and trade micros with $1,000 account. You know, when you could lose $100 easily in a day on a single move. And, you know, you're not going to be able to keep trading long enough to really ever get good at it with those kind of conditions. It's easier to spoof. Well, sure, you can totally come into the micro market and spoof, but it doesn't really do anything. The micro market doesn't really care or react. Anyways, so like number one is I think that there were a couple of places. So like just for example, Arizona. So really what it comes down to in my mind is like Arizona and Pennsylvania. Arizona and Pennsylvania are the two like suspect areas where if an election was stolen or will be stolen in the future, it will have happened in those two areas, right? In Arizona, it was that they had all of these machines that they knew were defunct, and they put them in the Republican area to depress Republican turnout. How much of it was an actual impact on like Kerry Lake losing, for instance? I guess I can't really say. Kind of seems to me like their legal options kind of run dry. Is that why Donald Trump lost Arizona? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think at the end of the day that Donald Trump was a very polarizing candidate, right? Okay. But that's why I'm saying that if you had, let's just say that it was Ron DeSantis versus Joe Biden, I don't think Joe Biden would stand a chance. And I don't think that there's any amount of election meddling that you could do to possibly make up for how bad of a candidate Joe Biden is. Right? Why do we always blame the Russians? Well, because that was the Democrats' chosen enemy. Yeah, this is so weird. It's such a weird thing, right? Because remember when Mitt Romney said that Russia was our greatest geopolitical foe, and the Democrats were like, "No, that's not true. That's such an awful and dumb thing to say," right? And then he was totally right. And after Obama won that election, Russia did all of these things, and started doing all of this attacking and everything. And then by the time Donald Trump came along, it was like the Democrat Party hates the Russians. Well, why is that? Because the way that it works, guys, is the political strategists at the top, meaning like the president, the leader of the House and Senate, and their political advisors, and the people at the head of the parties as well. They kind of all collaborate and they decide to set like a narrative and a strategy, right? And almost always as a part of the Democrat narrative and strategy is they single somebody out as the enemy. And so during Donald Trump's run, they decided to single out the Russians as the enemy. And that's why it's like all of a sudden it's just like this group of people or this country or whatever it is the enemy. And like nobody ever talked about it or cared about it before, but like now that's it. It's because these people really have like crazy amounts of power. They know how to manipulate the media and social media and everybody's conversation to turn a certain group into the enemy. Right? They totally do it. That's why, these Democrats do have one thing right. When you start to see a candidate or a party start to turn a group of Americans into the enemy, then that's like an immediate red flag. Right? So I don't think I see Republicans. So Democrats will try and claim that Republicans turn immigrants into the enemy. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that Republicans try to turn drug cartels into the enemy, right? But they always pick an enemy. And in that case, it was Russia. What, Saf? I don't know if I want to talk about the Russia thing again today. We've always been at war with East Eurasia. I think that you should be, you know what? Especially when it comes to international law. Listen, okay. All countries and leaders will distort both national law and history to try and make the current thing that they're doing look good. Okay. So like, yeah, Russia will say the US, the West agreed to not meddle with Ukraine. So first of all, that's probably not a completely, I think that there's a little bit of nuance in like what was actually signed and what was agreed to and that sort of a thing on that side. Okay. And then there's also, you can argue about, was what the West was doing in this particular instance actually meddling? Like if Ukraine wants to align itself more closely with NATO or join the EU or whatever, how is that a violation if it's Ukraine that wants it, not the EU? That sort of a thing. But there's kind of still this point in the Ukraine conflict that you can kind of say none of this other shit matters, which is that does not give you the right to invade a sovereign country. Doesn't. What about deep fake videos or content? So it seems to me they should have just had 1 million middle-aged military men walk across the border in plain clothes, and then NATO would have been okay with it. Yeah. Well, it worked in Crimea. I mean, and this again, this is the thing that I have to come back to, okay? And the reason why I harp on this particular point is because this is the only piece of information that I have that seems to be effective at explaining and helping you navigate what's going on with Russia, okay? Is that you have to realize that Russia is ideologically driven by an ultra-nationalist ideology that basically says that they need to regain some of the prominence that they had as the USSR and have control over certain territories in order to protect themselves against the rest of the world who they don't trust. Okay? Like it all comes back to that. And all of their actions are in line with that. How like you come in and you say, well, they invaded because the West was stepping into Ukraine, okay? But that's not why they took over, all of these other places like Georgia and Crimea, etc., etc., etc. Guys, it is a long-term, ideologically driven plan to push. Yeah, and just kind of never push enough that the rest of the world actually responds and does something. And this is the first time where the rest of the world was kind of like, whoa, okay, hold up. We're going to do something. Not enough for them to put their own troops into it, but enough to start putting money into it. Right? That's all that's changed here with Ukraine. Otherwise, it's exactly like Georgia and all these other places. It's like, why are they really doing it? Because it holds strategic value to them. It holds military strategic value to them. And that's it. And all of this stuff about, the US, the West agreed not to meddle in Ukraine. And this is just propaganda that Putin uses to try and justify what he's doing that is clearly wrong. maybe it's a good argument or not. You know, I'm not an expert on that level of the history, but that's why it's kind of like, you don't have to be. Because you can come back to those two things, which is number one, doesn't give you the right to invade a sovereign country, and they're ideologically driven, right? So from our perspective, what do? Okay, what does it mean for us in the markets? Well, what it means for us in the markets is Putin's not going to stop, guys, right? Whatever happens in Ukraine, if we stop him in Ukraine and then the lines are there in Ukraine, and then that stays there for maybe generations, right? If you pull out of Ukraine and he takes over Ukraine, then the next thing that he's going to be looking at is Poland. I guarantee it. Because it's an ideologically driven strategy. No, of course. You're going to have to pay them in dollars. Oh no, you're totally right, Gary. Hey, the intelligence community intentionally deceived us on the weapons of mass destruction thing. You know, so this is one of the things that drives me crazy about conspiracy theories. Is that the overarching kind of problem can still be true without it having to be a conspiracy theory, right? So did the intelligence agencies and the defense companies all come up with some sort of secret pact to egg us into getting into a war in Iraq and all of these sorts of things? No. But rather, the people that are in those positions are just likely to have certain biases and trends towards certain tendencies that have a tendency to get us into war. So you don't have to have a conspiracy theory to explain it, right? You can just look at like systems and incentives to see how, yeah, in the end, the intelligence agencies did kind of drag us into a war unnecessarily. Because at the time, I believed that. Like, at the time, it was, hey, look, like, they showed us the evidence. There was a thing. It was a problem. We should go in and do something about it. Believed it. But what was the deal? Well, the intelligence agencies were making shit up. So that goes back to what Gary asked about, like, deep fakes. So the thing that I'm finding is like, okay, I could go and I could make a deep fake of Joe Biden saying something really awful or doing or saying something that would lose him the election, right? And then Joe Biden, what happens is then Joe Biden would come out and be like, well, that's not me, right? And so people, I don't think it's to the point right now. I haven't seen a situation where it's like there's some deep fake and they faked his voice and whatever, and then the person came out and denied it, but people don't believe him. That doesn't happen. I don't see that happening. But what does happen instead is you can create enough disinformation, especially in a fluid situation, right? So, as an example, like during this whole Wagner, coup attempt thing, which by the way, if you didn't kind of catch the aftermath of this, because I don't think that the reporting on it has been very good, and a lot of people are kind of confused anyways, it appears that what happened was they were planning a coup, but the coup was very dependent on them capturing two major generals and then flipping those soldiers over, and those generals were able to get away, and that was why the coup failed. And so the Wagner boss, tried to cut his losses because he knew that he wouldn't be able to win in an extended conflict against the Chechnya army. Okay. But in a situation like that, Russia could potentially come out and make a video of him saying, oh, okay, we're not actually doing a thing. You need to go back here or whatever, giving some sort of an order, right? And that order could create enough confusion among people that they act in a way that is advantageous towards the Russian government. And in the end, people will understand that it was a deep fake or whatever the deal was, right? But they'll still have accomplished their objective. That's the sort of situation that I would be concerned about. And that's the sort of a situation that we are likely to run into as traders. It hasn't happened so much yet, but, one recent example was that there was a story of an explosion somewhere, right? Close to the Pentagon. Remember that? And the markets did react to it, even though it appears that the story was a complete fake, that somebody just generated an image with a robot and put it out onto Twitter. And it got enough traction on Twitter that it affected markets, right? So that's just been like the first instance of it. I'm sure it will happen again. Why are that? Well, so number one, I don't know if that's true. And number two, all sorts of crazy things happen, negative things on both sides. Okay. So like I could pull the whataboutism and I could say, well, why are Russians raping and killing civilians? Right. You want to play that game? Like bad shit happens. It's a war. So why does that? It doesn't make them right. What I'm saying is you are parroting a propaganda point, right? You're saying something. It's like, yes, okay, bad things happen during war. So what happens is the propagandists will come out and they'll say, look, here's the bad thing that the other side is doing, and they'll focus all of your attention on that one thing and detract your attention away from the bad things that their side are probably doing also. Right? But it doesn't change whether or not Russia should invade the country, and it doesn't change whether or not the United States should continue to give assistance to Ukraine. It's quite frankly, when it comes down to it, it's completely irrelevant. And how can you know? Well, first of all, doesn't affect any of those larger things. Is just something intended to tug at your emotions. And no offense, but you come in and you use that argument to me, that's a dead giveaway to me that like you're being influenced by propaganda. Sure, but everybody's human rights gets violated in a war. Okay? You don't have, listen, you're talking about sending 19-year-old kids, okay, ladled with testosterone and giving them weapons and sending them into a country, okay? Some of them are going to do stupid shit. It's always going to happen, okay? You think that during World War II that there was never an instance of a U.S. soldier doing something bad and violating somebody's human rights? I guarantee you it happened. You just never hear about it, right? Because we want to hush those things. Okay, sure, but who cares? Doesn't change anything. You're clearly on the liberal side of the argument. Well, you're not making an argument that has anything to do with the question at hand. If we're talking about the real argument that's at play here in Ukraine, which is twofold. One, is it okay for Russia to invade Ukraine? And two, should the West provide aid to Ukraine to fight the Russians? Right? Okay. So that some people in Ukraine maybe did something wrong, understanding that it's a war zone, does that affect whether or not it was okay for Russia to invade? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Right? You're distracting us with a completely different argument. It has nothing to do with nothing. Okay, if somebody's human rights were violated, then let them stand before a international court. You're gonna have to. We got 5 minutes, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. But it just comes back to that thing. It's like I know it sucks, but my audience doesn't want to hear it. It's in the United States' best interest to give support to Ukraine. Telling you. If we just leave them high and dry, you're not going to like the world that results from that. You will not. Yes, we should provide an aid. Poland will enter if, yeah. Do you see this story that, I mean, I think this guy is kind of maybe just messing with people. But did you see that there was that Russian politician that said that the Wagner group is going over to Belarus so that they can invade Poland? Like, who is the biggest? I don't know. How is it in their best interest? Because if you allow Russia to invade a sovereign country, then you completely undermine the entire U.S. position of prominence in the world that our entire prosperity is based on. So it would result in, number one, a more dangerous world with more dangerous threats on the rise. Like right now, it's like, okay, well, we got Russia as a problem, and North Korea is a problem, Iran is a problem, and maybe China is a problem, but, you know, like, we're supposed to be friends with China, but we're concerned that they're going to do something with Taiwan, right? Okay. If you go and you allow this thing, then it's like every place in the world is a problem, other than like the United States and the EU could become a problem then at that point, because it gives every dictator and crazy person carte blanche to go and do whatever it is that they think is going to be most beneficial to them, and starting wars. So like the whole thing for the past 50, 60 years is that it's just been a really bad idea for anybody to go in and do that, because the US will come in and fuck you up, right? And because we have that situation, we're able to have relatively free trade, and we're able to get things for cheap, right? If you destroy that, here's what you're going to have happen is you're going to see supply chains around the world continue to disintegrate. You're going to continue to see inflation, and you're going to continue to see business. You'll see a more multifaceted world, which will result in a less prosperous United States. Oh, I didn't put anybody on timeout. Oh, hold on here. I can't see. Right. Well, they didn't do a great job in Afghanistan, but it was better than some of the alternatives. So this is an interesting one, because it's like, okay, so should we have gone into Iraq? Probably not. But I'm making that probably not justification based purely on that the reasons that we went in there turned out to be not true. Okay. Afghanistan is a different issue, right? The reason that we went into Afghanistan was because of Osama bin Laden. And so, you know, we had a justified reason, you know, a reason that you could justified for going in there. Okay. So then you look at it and there was a cost. Okay. Like we did take on additional debt to be there in Afghanistan. And then ultimately we left because of some mismanagement between, well, you know, I think that it was kind of like, I really think people don't give Donald Trump enough credit for it, because what happened was Donald Trump said, we're going to pull out, and kind of didn't do anything to help prepare for it. And then Joe Biden came in, and instead of saying, well, this timeline and everything else is stupid, he just said, nope, we're going to do it, and continued through with it and didn't plan for anything, right? Okay. But now, knowing what we know now, was it worth spending the time in Afghanistan or not? It's not. We don't know enough to know. Sure seems like you could make the argument that it was a bad idea, but I don't know. Give them 10, 20 years first. Don't mention squirrels. You ever seen that Rick and Morty episode where they find out that squirrels are, well, it was one of those kind of episodes where there's like a bunch of mini stories, but they find out that squirrels are actually like secretly controlling the world. Yeah, well, no, inflation can come. So a lot of people say that inflation is just the printing of the money, which I think that there was a usage of the term that was kind of like that. But the term changed because it was not useful otherwise, right? Because what really matters to people is what they pay at the store, right? And so the cost of individual goods rising does contribute to inflation. Okay. Cost push inflation is a thing. And if the United States continues to lose its prominent position in the world in terms of foreign policy, and that has a negative impact on supply chains and forces the United States to source more of its goods from the United States instead of from abroad, it will result in inflation and higher interest rates. It's just straight up the way it works, right? So yes, the United States and the West does have a very strong incentive to support Ukraine. It's a lot of debt. I got to tell you, it's not like it's all positive. There's a lot of money they're spending over there, and that money is probably not all being spent very well, right? But it's probably better than the alternative. The question is just, at what point does it get so bad that it's not better than the alternative, right? Because if it resulted in a financial crisis, then it's probably not worth it, right? But where is that point? It's probably way far away. So it's probably not an issue. You see a pic of the guy who lost the 6th bay. What are you talking about? Does oil and bond prices have a negative correlation? They can sometimes, yes. So the situation where oil moves up and treasuries sell is much less common, but there are certain economic conditions where that happens, and we've seen that, yes. You know, especially at the beginning of 2021, right? Because you saw many of those days where oil spiked up like insane and treasuries sold off. Okay, it's time for me to get going. Markets rally on bank earnings and poor sales data. Today's action has been really weird. I'm glad that we had a bunch of stuff to argue about and talk about today, because I just was not into this market action today. Like Uzi was saying earlier, like there was that, the market got really roiled, and then after that it was just like flat. It's because you're all watching me. It's because we all decided to talk. If we had all decided to do something, then the market makers would have entertained us. Okay, I gotta get going, so I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.